It is March, and that means it's March brown time. And sometimes the dries aren't coming off, so you're not going to be chucking dry flies. There's no adults on the water. You're not seeing much going on. And often then you're probably not going to be swinging wet flies either. And when that's the case, you just got to be throwing nymphs. And March browns have a very special profile, and that means that you kind of got to mimic that. They're in the clinger family of mayflies, so they have a really wide body. So they have a very distinct look, and this is a mayfly pattern that imitates a March brown here. It's kind of a spin-off of it's kind of a mix of a 20-incher and a pheasant tail, and it really helps hold that wide profile with the legs. So this is Simon with Caddis Fly Shop and Oregon Fly Fishing Blog, and I'm going to show you guys how to tie this March brown jigged nymph. So looking up close at this one, you can see it looks like a pheasant tail and it looks like a 20-incher. It's because it's kind of a mix of both of them. You've got pheasant tail fibers for the tail here, you've got pheasant tail fibers for the body, and copper wire, peacock curl for the thorax, and then you have pheasant tail for the legs again. And then you have partridge for additional legs. And the reason why there's two sets of legs is because that really forces the notion that this is indeed a clinger nymph. So it kind of has a wider body. There's some tricks that you can lay wire on either side of the hook shank to kind of widen it up. I'll show you how to do that. I don't do it a ton on this one, but on other ones I do it a whole lot more. And it's got a big bead. So looking at it, you know, it looks like that classic clinger profile, and especially in high water, but I think all the time it's important to mimic profile and size, more important than anything. And that's what we're going for with this one. It's kind of a simpler fly. There's a couple of steps with the thorax, but anything anyone can really do, just take your time. And if it's too tough for you to put the thorax up here, you can always, you know, tie the fly upside down from how I'm tying it. I just tied it like this because as a jig hook rides upside down, I want it to be right side up. Doesn't make a huge difference if you're too crowded in there if you want to flip it. Okay, so getting started here, we're using some Danville 70 denier in black. Just because we have to build just a little bit of body here. And I don't want to be doing that with a gel spun style thread. So the hook we're using here is an Arax FW 555, number 14. I'm a big fan of Arax hooks. I jump back and forth between all sorts of stuff, but they're one that I always come back to. So really happy with this hook for this particular fly. It looks really good. But any kind of jigged hook would work. I just really like these in particular. So what we're using here is number 14 Arax jig hook. And then this is a 5/32 bead in copper. You can use a smaller bead, but part of the beauty of the bead we're using here is that it's big, and not only does it get the fly down, but it also provides a little bit of that big taper for the clinger nymph, and that's a big deal. Like I said, I'm a believer in the fact that profile is the most important out of anything, and size. And that's really what we're trying to mimic. You could tie a purple one of these and the fish would probably eat it. I guess purple is a bad color because people are superstitious about that, but you get the idea that it's not super crucial what exactly that it is. It's just, is it the right profile and size? And so this is some 70 denier black Danville thread that we're using for the body, and then we just chucked in some pheasant tail for the back. And what we're going to do now is, this is some uni soft wire in medium copper, and we're going to lay some on either side. Clinger mayflies, which is what type of nymph the March brown is, they live in really fast water, so their body is short, it's like flat and wide, and it allows them to be super, you know, the water rushes over them, you know, with very little resistance because of the shape of their body. And because of that, they have a kind of unique shaped body that we're trying to mimic here. So by putting one piece of copper here and then breaking it off, and then one on this side, it adds just a little bit of additional width and kind of, it's just more suggestive of that specific style of fly. Because when the March Browns are going on, that's what the fish are eating, and that's what they're looking for. And you can maximize your chances of having a really great day by giving the fish exactly what they want. So we're going to tie some pheasant tail in from the back, and when you're selecting your pheasant tail, I like to pick ones that have a lot of brown and longer, just so that when you wrap, you're not going to run out of you know, the good looking stuff. So we are going to wrap this all the way up, not all the way to the bead, leave enough room to put a thorax. So I'll stop it right about here. And then we're going to counter wrap with wire to kind of lock it all in. Kind of space it evenly to add a segmented body. This is more to just make sure nothing really goes anywhere and your pheasant won't come unraveled, because this fly is just going to get torn up in the best way by hungry fish eating it. And if you don't do this and you take this step out of a lot of flies, they just don't last quite as long. And so now what we're going to do is cinnamon tip turkey tail. And this is a fantastic material for wing cases and stonefly backs. I use it all the time. This and pheasant tail are two materials that I just burn through in terms of natural materials. So I always like to cut it fatter than what you actually need. In reference, this is about as wide as the bead, or maybe a little bit wider. This is the part I was saying earlier, that if this is tight for you to squeeze this in here, don't worry about it, and you can just tie it upside down like this. You know, do the whole back, just flip your whole hook over. I've just done enough of these that it's not too difficult for me to squeeze everything in here. But if it's challenging for you and you're really having a hard time, there's no problem. We're worried about profile, not exact things right now. And so now, partridge is what we're going to add. And picking from a partridge skin is kind of difficult, and I've had some people mention they'd like to know where to pick things from. Sometimes I just assume everyone knows, and it's good to get a refresher. So if there's something in the future that you guys want us to explain in greater depth, just drop a comment below, or if you see me in the shop, let me know. When you're picking from a skin, and we'll do a whole other video on this, the top is the smallest and the bottom's the biggest. I'm not sure how much you can see right now, but just know that when you pick closer to the neck, it's going to be really small stuff, and when you pick close to the butt, the feathers are going to be big, and there is some variation in between, and you can kind of pull feathers up and look at what you're doing. So when I pick for this particular fly, I'm picking a smaller one closer up by the neck. I am not down by the butt, I'm not really on the shoulders, I am up by the neck. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip the fluff off this to prep this feather, and I'm going to pull a lot of the fibers back. So I am pulling them back just like that. And what you want to be looking at is the length of the first fibers that you're pulling back are going to be the length of the legs that you're putting on your fly. So that's another way to, you know, if you pick one and it doesn't look quite right, you need to look at these first barbules right here where you're making your split. And what we're going to do now that we have this all prepped, don't worry if it's longer than what the body's going to be. We are just going to tie this in with the curve up, facing back like this. We're going to kind of cinch it in like that. And you kind of want the barbules to be starting right where your cinnamon tip turkey tail ends. And that will make the legs sit right exactly where they need to be. If you leave a lot more of the stem and pull it forward, you're not going to get a whole lot of leg action in there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to throw a bunch of peacock herl in like a standard pheasant tail. I like to take more, I like to take a larger clump always. I just think it works better, and if one breaks, I don't have to kind of restart. So this is a clump of 3, and we're going to tie these in and palmer them up. And if you want to go over this a couple of extra times to build some bulk, be my guest. That's what we're looking for right here, is a lot of bulk up by the head. So I am going to take some a couple of extra wraps here, but I do want to leave a little bit of extra space by the bead. I don't want to do a ton of wraps up by the bead. If I'm gonna add some extra bulk, I want it to be more towards the back because we still have to squeeze in one more set of legs. Next, what we're gonna do is we're going to put these legs in. So we're gonna kind of separate these fibers back. If you have a bodkin, that works. If you have one of these stone faux bobbin threaders, that works too. And so we're going to kind of separate the legs back that we want to squeeze in there. And I like to pinch like this and pull them back. You know what? I was skipping a step. I'm not thinking. We need to put legs in. And so we're going to take 2 pinches of pheasant tail fibers. With maybe about 5 or like 8. You don't need, like, if you do too many, it's not really going to, you know, serve its purpose with what you want to do. But we're taking pinches of these fibers in right now, and this is too long, you can see. Longer is always better than shorter, and you can snug it up. And basically this is an extra set of bulk to kick out these legs, to really sell the fact that this is indeed a clinger nymph, because that's what they've been eating. You can do it like a 20-incher style without this, and the partridge will flop around a little bit more. I like to do it this way personally, just because it helps, like I said, it helps kick it out a little bit more. So keep this out of your way when you do this part. This is what's a little bit difficult. And the reason why it's so important to do this first is because you want the partridge to rest over the pheasant tail. So that's why it's important to do this before pulling the whole wing case over the back. So once you have them in, the next step is to pull everything over, which we'll do in a second here. And so once you have the legs kind of even, we'll do a couple of wraps just to make sure nothing's really going anywhere. Doing a couple more is always safe, but you don't want to kind of crowd things too much up there. And so we're going to trim these tag ends off, and then we'll pull everything over and we'll be all good. So now, like I said, like I was doing before, we're going to pull these legs up, and then however many legs you want, decide and just pull them back. And we're going to cinch that down like that. 1, 2, 3. Again, more wraps is kind of helpful to secure things. And then we're going to pull this wing case over. And then you want to kind of make sure the legs are split down the middle.
This one.
And then we'll pull that up.
Straight.
Okay, so now we're going to clip all this off, add a couple wraps of thread in here, and then you can kind of guide some loose legs if they've kicked themselves out at a funny angle. And then I'll take wraps to get all the things that are kind of knocking around out of the way. And here you have it. You've got your March Brown pheasant tail style nymph with a really wide profile up front, and the legs will kick out, and it's for sure gonna look like a March Brown, which is exactly what you want. I will do a little dot of solarize. I'm not a huge fan of putting a little dot of resin over the wing case. If I brought my medium solarize, I would put a little dot, but I just had my bone dry today, so I'm just putting a little dot right there, and then I'll cure that up. And here you've got an awesome searching nymph this early season. It works really great. Really suggestive of a March Brown, which is exactly what you want to be throwing right now. You can get all this stuff and more at caddisflyshop.com. There's links below, or if you're local, peek your head in the shop.